Hey everyone, welcome back to the Law Careers Net channel. It's your girl Simranjeet Mann here, and today we're going to be talking about direct training contracts. Now, what's the difference between a direct training contract application and a vacation scheme application? So vacation scheme applications means that you are essentially applying for an internship or a couple of weeks spent at that firm, basically like a week or a 2-week long job interview for you to then be considered for a training contract. Direct training contract offers mean that you don't have to spend that 2 to 3 weeks or 1 week in that firm doing a vacation scheme. Your firm consider you directly for a training contract. Now, the deadlines for direct training contract applications end generally around July. What I used to do was I would go straight to Law Careers Net, I would go through the deadlines page and see which firms had their deadlines coming up for direct training contract applications. During the training contract process, I had 3 offers, 2 of which were from vacation schemes and 1 was from a direct training contract offer. And therefore, in this video, I'm going to reflect on personally what I felt like was the advantages of doing a direct training contract application and the disadvantages of doing a direct training contract application. So let's start off with the pros. So one pro that I really found was doing direct training contract applications really fit into my schedule of how I wanted to apply to firms. So essentially what I did was from September to January of that next year, I applied to vacation schemes, and then from January down to July, I applied for direct training contract applications. So in terms of that timeline, it really kind of fit in terms of what I wanted to do. A second advantage is that you can circumvent having to do a vacation scheme. Now, many of you may be thinking, why would you pass on the offer of doing a vacation scheme? Well, for those of you who, for example, are working full-time, particularly, for example, if you're a paralegal where in your contract it can state that you're not allowed to work for other firms, doing a vacation scheme for a week or a 2-week period could mean that you breach your employment contract, and therefore doing direct training contract applications really helps and circumvents that aspect of having to take 2 weeks out to do your vacation scheme. Now, the next thing is something that I've heard personally. Take it as a pinch of salt because it may not be true, but I heard on the grapevine that there are less people who apply for direct training contract applications. I do caveat with the fact that I applied when COVID-19 and stuff didn't exist, and there may be increasing competition now. There may be more numbers who have applied for direct training contract applications compared to when I was in the process. However, when I was at university, for example, all of us were gearing towards doing vacation scheme applications. I don't think I'd even known that you could do direct training contract applications until after I graduated. So from a personal perspective, I really found that direct training contract applications were somehow I feel like less competitive. And that's also something that a trainee solicitor told me at a networking event as well. Of course, again, it's a rumour, it's something I heard on the grapevine, so don't take that as actual advice, but that's something that I genuinely found when I was in the process as well. So you could be encountering less numbers as well when you are doing direct training contract applications. Another advantage of direct training contract applications is there is genuinely no harm in trying. Now, let me give you a personal anecdote. I think I've talked about this on my LinkedIn as well. I applied to a firm for a direct training contract application. On the application form, they only said they take on 2 trainees and they only take on people who had a high 2-1. And I didn't have a high 2-1, I just had a standard 2-1. I looked at that number of the fact that they're only taking 2 people into the firm, and I almost didn't apply because I was like, this is so competitive. How in hell are they going to select me? Long story short, got through the application stage, got through the initial few stages, found myself at an assessment centre, did the final training contract interview, and then got offered the training contract offer. So I definitely am a big advocate of no harm in trying. And also, for example, if you have learnt things from the training contract process, I guess this is another advantage. But for example, say if you've applied to vacation schemes and they weren't successful, direct training contract applications can be that form of backup. And also you can apply what you've learned, any new thing that you've learned throughout the process. You can apply that into your direct training contract applications. Furthermore, if you feel like you are someone who is just starting off with making applications, you don't feel as comfortable, you can use those direct training contract applications as kind of practice rounds. I'm not saying submit the application afterwards. You know, I'd want you to submit an application to a form where you've put 100% effort in and you're 100% sure that you want to apply. So if you want to have a look at the application form and see what it's like to apply to a certain firm, say if you're new to the process, you can use the direct training contract applications to do that. Now, a disadvantage with doing direct training contract applications is the fact that, of course, if you do get offered a direct training contract offer, you have not experienced that kind of insight that you may have gotten when you're on a vacation scheme. Now, this is something that definitely came into play with me when I was selecting which firm to go for out of my offers. And I really kind of went for the firm that I did the vacation scheme in because I felt like I had a feel for the culture. Of course, going to an assessment centre, I'm not going to lie, most of the time you're absolutely bricking it rather than actually considering the firm's culture and stuff. I was just more so focused on, let me try and actually do this correct and let me try and, you know, smash this assessment centre. So I really wanted to be at a firm where I'd gain a bit of insight beforehand anyway. So that played a bit of a factor for me as well. Another disadvantage, and I guess this is the only disadvantage that I felt personally, is linking to a previous point I made about stats and numbers. Now, some firms, for example, only recruit from vacation schemes. So one thing that you don't want to try and do is, if you find yourself in a situation where you are really interested in a firm, and you have the choice of doing a vacation scheme as well, for example, say if you're at university, don't try and put all your eggs in one basket and say, okay, I'm only going to do direct training contract applications for this firm because I can't be asked to do a vacation scheme. But those firms may only recruit from their vacation schemes and only have a select number left for direct training contract applications. So from a statistical perspective, you could lower your chances of getting a training contract offer if you don't go via the vacation scheme route. So that's something to definitely take into account. That's not to say that every firm is like this. There are some firms, for example, that only accept people from direct training contract applications. So obviously this differs from firm to firm. I would really recommend just going to the firm's website and just checking it out and seeing, you know, where they recruit most of their numbers from. Is it from vacation schemes? Is it from direct training contract applications? Or is it a bit of both? So that was a sum up of the main pros and cons that I faced in terms of doing direct training contract applications. Now, a last thing that I want to tackle here before we end this video is a very important one. I get many questions from individuals asking me that they want to apply to a certain firm via a direct training contract application, and that they're worried that they're not good enough. I feel like there's some kind of alleged notion that you need to have a certain amount of experience, you need to have a certain amount of caliber to do direct training contract applications, and that they're harder to do compared to vacation scheme applications. From what I found personally, similar questions are asked for direct training contract applications and vacation scheme applications. I didn't really find that there was any kind of particular difficulty in answering those questions. They were both kind of equally difficult, if that makes sense. So both vacation scheme questions and direct training contract questions, they were both very similar in terms of what they were asked. I'm not saying that they were easy questions, but they were both, you know, they both asked for the same thing. And the thing is, the firm is always looking for the same qualities in all of their candidates as well. So they're still looking for people who fit their culture, who fit their values of what they're looking for. So that doesn't differ compared to when you're doing a vacation scheme application or a direct training contract application either. This all links into one of my advantages that I gave and a bit of encouragement. There is genuinely no harm in trying for a direct training contract application. Like myself, you may be surprised. So yeah, direct training contract applications, that's everything that I have to say about them. If you do decide to do one this summer, good luck. I hope it goes well, and see you all in the next video.